Hi everybody, and thank you for joining us at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. I'm your host Leon Gordon, and we're back for another fantastic session on Power BI learning together and coming to this community to continue to upskill with industry-ready speakers on the subject of Power BI. Now, welcome everybody for joining us again on our weekly sessions, and as I mentioned, the Q&A will be open from now, so please do jump in and let us know where you're dialing in from, if it's your first time, and what you hope to learn from today's session. In today's session, we're going to be looking at an introduction to calculation groups with Bernat Agulló, and I'll just give a bit of a brief background around Bernat before I hand over to him for his session. So Bernat is a senior BI developer and partner at Esbrina Passionate. He's passionate about Power BI in general and DAX and calculation groups in particular. He has a strong background in Excel, which we were just discussing prior to going live, and also T-SQL and SSIS as well. And he's also had some stints in Tableau and Qlik. He comes from an engineering background and has been working with consulting companies. He likes to understand business problems, working directly with the end users. So with that being said, I'll just pass you over to Bernat for his session.
Well, hello everyone. I'm so glad to be here and looking forward to share with you my introduction to calculation groups. So I have plenty of things I want to talk about, so I'll just jump in and see where we go. So thank you for the introduction, Leon. That was very nice. And since you know me already, let's go in. What are calculation groups? This is an interesting question. So, and it's some abstract, so it's not very straightforward to get it right. So I'll just go with this one. It's a set of DAX expressions that replace the value and format string of the measures present in their scope. Yeah. So we'll see how this works. But also let's remember that each pair of DAX expression, one for the value and one the format, is called a calculation item. Yeah. So this is the basis. And what do I mean by this? Let's have here, you see I have a dummy measure, and this dummy measure is just blank. Yeah, there is nothing in there. Okay, this is important. And now here I have something, yeah, that is actually calculation items of a calculation group, and look what happened. So when I apply this one, boom, my dummy measure, which is blank, and suddenly is my margin. And not only that, it has a nice format string too, because when I move to margin %, I have a percentage as a format string as well. So it's doing both things, yeah. And well, that's remarkable, I would say. But where are these expressions? Well, these expressions cannot be seen from inside Power BI desktop at this point today. Yeah, and if we just go and see who is this dynamic measure thing, first, it looks like a table. So here you see, I mean, there is nothing that tells you that this is something else, which is a problem, I would say. And it's just like a very small table, 2 columns. One is useless at this point. It's an order. If I wanted to like have them in a matrix in certain order, I could do that. But basically, it's just 1 column with some names, yeah, which are the names of the calculation items. So then what? Yeah, so how do we build the calculation groups? Okay, so for that, we need to go to third-party tools, and especially one, which is a tabular editor, which you can use both tabular editor 2 or 3. If you're lucky enough, get the 3. Yeah, but 2 it works as well. Also, inside tabular editor 3, you can also build calculation groups with a DAX script. Yeah, so that's set. Let's do it. Let's build one of them. So here I have a chart with nothing so far. I'm just slicing by month, and I have my dummy measure, which is blank, and there's nothing. So let's try to build the pieces here. Oh, I'm jumping now into tabular editor, and I'm already connected to my model. So here, I'll just right click here and say I want to create a calculation group. Okay, let's do that again. Create calculation group. And we'll call it dynamic measure 2. Yeah, because I already have one. So we'll stick with this. Now, you see we have a column. The column we saw with the names, it has by default, it's called name. I normally call it the same as the calculation group. because if I apply it on the panel and the filter panel, it's easier to understand this way. And here we have the calculation items, right? So it's like a folder inside this table where we create one of these rows. Yeah. So now I'll create a calculation item. And I'll just say, OK, first of all, I'll give a name of it, and we'll just replicate what we had or something close to that. Let's say here I have my margin calculation item, and I want to replace whatever is there with my margin measure, yeah, to achieve what we want, right? Let's first just do this, and then maybe another one with a margin percent, which will be our margin percent. And well, we could do all of them, but let's try for this one. So we speed up a bit. Here we just created that in synchronously, you know, with tabular editor, you have like to synchronize back to the model. And so we go back to the model. OK, wait, what happened? We should be getting a refresh thing, which you're not getting for some reason. Oh, no, I don't want this one. OK, let's not worry too much. Sometimes this happens. I'll just close this real quick. Okay, we didn't do much yet. Let's do it again. It almost never happens, but sometimes it happens. So basically, when you create a calculation group or you add calculation items to a calculation group, you need to do a refresh from the Power BI desktop side as well. So let me just go real quick to the one we want, which are here. OK. And now I'll just connect to this new one. Oh, whoa, that's weird. I only have one of them. Oh, maybe that's the reason why I didn't. Oh, I had two of them open. That's why. OK, what should we do? OK, we'll close this one. Sorry about this. Refresh now. I don't know how did it happen. Anyway, selection the calculation group. Yeah, that is correct. And now if we go to the page where we were, which is here. Now here we already have our dynamic measure too. OK, so now what we'll do is here, that's the column. So we'll put the column in this filter. Yeah, we have the margin and margin percent. And now when we apply the margin, we get something and we get something else. Well, right. But here we see something. Yeah, if I remove this, you realize I had a dynamic title. Yeah. And also I want to show you something else. If this is a table, you see for the margin, well, we have some weird number. OK, this is not very easy to see. And for margin percent, we're not getting the percentage. So we're missing something here. Yeah. OK, if you remember from my first, what I told you, this is the value of what we're going to replace in the measure. But we didn't say anything about the format string. So for both of them, we should go here, the format string expression, and then here I could go just and say, OK, this is the format string I want, something like this. And for the margin percent, this is the format string I want. OK. The cool thing is that this is a DAX expression. I'm just choosing to put just a string, but I could do something much more complicated that in the end was a string, and we'll see some of that. So now if I save back to the model, now we're getting nicer. We're getting a nicer thing. So the margin and the margin percent. OK, but let's go back to what we had, which was this chart. Wait, no, oh, changed the wrong one. Sorry about this. OK. But here we realize my calculation group is replacing also the title, which is a measure. Yeah. And as you will recall, I said that calculation groups replace all the measures in their scope. Yeah, so this calculation item is affecting this visual. So all the measures in the visual will be affected by the calculation item. And at this point, you may be thinking, well, I don't want all my measures to be replaced. Yeah. So how we do that? Okay. Let's jump to the next one. And here is how we can manage the scope of the calculation groups. So there are some special functions, DAX functions, that we can use inside calculation groups, and that we should only use inside calculation groups. You don't get an error if you put that in a measure, but it's meaningless because here these measures will, these functions will tell you what the measure is, and you can use as a placeholder for the measure that was originally in the scope, or what's the format string of that measure in the scope, and check if it's actually some measure is selected or not. Yeah. So what we want to say is that, okay, if my measure is say like sales amount, margin percent, or total cost, I want. Oh wait, no. If my measure is the dummy measure, I want to replace it by whatever we're coming. And if it's something else, then don't touch it. Yeah, that is what we want to do. So how would we do that? Here, if we go to the margin side, it's like, don't replace just about anything with a margin. We say if selected, is selected measure, and then we put the dummy measure. We could create another one, but I'll just stay with that. If this is the case, if this returns true, then do the thing. Yeah, so it's like replace whatever was there with margin. But if it's another measure like the title of the chart, then just leave what it is. But I don't know who is it. So I'll just say selected measure. So this is whatever measure you're finding. If it's not that one, then just leave it as it is. So this is how you should read this one, right? So let's save this back and see if we get some different behavior. Let me put this again, dynamic measure 2. Where is it? Here. Dynamic measure 2, dynamic measure 2. Okay, so when I apply the margin, now at least the title is not gone. Yeah, if I apply the second one, I didn't do the protection and it's still breaking, but at least for this one, it's already working, which is nice. And then we should do that for both sides, because maybe the other one is also a numeric one. And for the format string, you should also do the same thing. So if this is the measure in which I am replacing, or I want to do things with that, do whatever the changes I want to do. Otherwise, just leave whatever format string it has. Yeah, but we'll get into more detail in a second. Yeah, so you see that this is how we can limit the scope and also use the name. Sometimes we want to see to check the measure. You can also say, okay, if the name of the measure is this or this or this, or you can do as we did. So it's selected measure, and then you put the measure as an argument to the function. Okay, so so it's not like a switch measure. No, it's much more, right? So I just want to be clear with this. And so, for example, what is that we can do? Let's do time intelligence with calculation groups. Yeah, if you search for calculation groups on the internet, you'll see, oh, you can do time intelligence. And it's true, and it's very, very useful. So, because what happens, if you do it with measures, you see, this is just what happens when you try to do time intelligence with measures. Yeah, so for each measure and each calculation, you need a new measure, and then boom, this goes completely out of open board, right? So we have too many measures. With calculation groups, we can drastically change this. So wait, let me make this smaller. So basically, we want to go from this to this. Okay, how can we do this? So we'll create a calculation group, of course, but then how can we do this? It's not as difficult as it looks. If you I'll do now with the other one. So to see that really even without IntelliSense, it's not so difficult to build one, basic one at least. And this is the other interface. So I'll just go and here and create a new calculation group, and I'll call it Time Intelligence 2. Okay. And now here also I'll call the column Time Intelligence 2. And now let's start creating calculation items. A new calculation item for current year. For current year, there's nothing we need to do, right? Because we're filtering for a year and we want to see the value for that same year. So we'll just return selected measure. Yeah, this is not so difficult to remember. Yeah? So if I put sales amount in the visual, it will just return sales amount. Now, how do I create the one for previous year? Okay, now, if you know how to do a measure, you know how to do a calculation item. Yeah, basically what I'll do is I'll get this expression and bring it here. Yeah, and okay, this is maybe a little bit too big. And then, wait, maybe this is too small. And then what I'll do is I'll replace, because I don't want to always return the margin in this case. I want to return whatever measure is there, move it back 1 year. So I'll go with selected measure. Yeah. Here, we're not putting the protection thing that we saw a minute ago, but this is just to make it easier. Yeah, we should do it as well, just in case. And then, well, we have already 2 calculation items. So now when we go back here, okay, now we get the yellow ribbon thing. We refresh, and now we should get a Time Intelligence 2. Okay, so what I'll do now, here I already have year and sales amount as values, and I'll bring this calculation item 2 here at the top. And we already see that it works. So here for 2008, I'm getting the value for 2007 and so back and so forth. Yeah. And we could continue doing almost the same thing that you would do with measures, but when instead of saying this exact measure, you say selected measure. So whatever is there, do these calculations. And that just worked fine. I mean, if I change anything, it will update accordingly. And so it's very, very convenient. So you think of that, if this already reduces the number of measures by a lot, especially if you have a lot of base measures. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and continue. I mean, we could do all the calculation items, but I think that you get the logic already. So now, how do we use calculation groups? Yeah, this is also important. As you've seen, we already use this one. So as part of the visual. So in a matrix, you can put it in a calculation as a column. So in this column, this first calculation item is applied to the measure and so on and so forth. Yeah, this is one way. The other one is through the filter panel. Yeah, so here, for example, I just put the sales amount here in the field section, but in the wait, I don't see now. Wait, but in the filter panel, I'm using previous year. Yeah, and as you can see, this is the value for previous year indeed. Yeah, so this is rounding up, but it works as well. And now there is another interesting one that is using it inside DAX expressions. Yeah, so here, this is the one. Yeah, this is the measure. You see, I'm just applying the filter inside the DAX expression. So this is sales amount, and then I use this as any other filter, but in this case, it will do all this time intelligence part and works just fine. So I'm getting the same result. The interesting part about this one is that since the measure, yeah, the calculation item is not part of the filter context. Yeah, and that has big implications if you're working with drill through or tooltips, because think of it, in this case, if I do a tooltip, everything that is on the other page will be affected by this calculation item. And that can be good, or maybe not. So if you're going to get rid of the calculation group on the tooltip, you can do it this way. So for instance, if I want a tooltip to show all the different calculation items, for example, I cannot do it if the calculation group is already part of the filter context. But if I apply it through a measure, then I still have this card for me. Yeah. Okay, so next thing, rules and warnings when using calculation groups. Yeah. So only one, only one calculation item of the same calculation group. Yeah, this is important. Can be active in the same evaluation context, or none is applied. So what does this mean? So we saw already, like I can put margin, I can put margin percent. If I put both, it's like if I put none. Yeah, of course. I mean, what is supposed to happen? Well, nothing happens. Okay. This is one thing. Now, another one that should not be an issue because implicit measures are not good practice, but if you are using calculation groups, you cannot create new implicit measures. What are implicit measures? You say, okay, this is when you drag a numeric column into a values part of a visual. So here, for example, I have a card and I don't know, I would like to summarize the sales. Oh no, this is the store. The sales quantity, for instance. You see already that like the little sigma thing has disappeared. And if I try nevertheless to put it here, it's not working. Yeah, the reason is that I have a calculation group in the model, and then this is not, you cannot do it any further. If I had done that before creating the first calculation group, it would still be there, but it would not be affected by the calculation group either. So better just don't use implicit measures. Yeah. And now calculation groups only work on measures, cannot be used on variables or expressions. Yeah. So for instance, because sometimes you get carried away, it's like, wow, this is like a function for DAX. Well, it's not. Yeah, and it's and I'll show you the difference right now. So here I have a wrong sales amount. I mean, why is wrong? Here because I tried to apply a calculation item to an expression. This is not working. Yeah, it's doing nothing. This is actually returning for the current year. So this is the same as if it wasn't there. Yeah. However, if you remember the other one, which is next to it, that was exact expression of this measure, but it doesn't work if you put it as expression. You should put it as a measure. Yeah. So just so it's clear for everybody. Okay. And okay, another question. This is the toughest thing about calculation groups. Can we use more than one calculation group simultaneously? Yeah, the answer is yes, but tread with caution, yeah? Because it took me a long time to understand. Finally, this is the approach that it works best for me. Yeah, think of the precedence of the calculation group, which is a property of the calculation group that we'll see in a second, as an indicator of how close to the like say meters to the measure. Yeah, so the precedence would be like the first calculate, the precedence one, and then the higher the precedence, the farther away you are. Yeah, if you think like this, normally it makes sense what happens. So now I have a question. Well, I don't know if nobody's going to answer for me, but at least think inside. Which should be the correct one? Yeah, because I want my year-over-year percentage to be shown as a percent. So what is the correct order? Yeah, so if I have put first the dynamic measure and then the calculation, the time intelligence on top, or the other way around. I don't know. Somebody has an opinion on that. Right now, let's see what happens, and we'll see in a second. I think right now we are in this situation. Yeah, so we have the dynamic measure has a higher precedence than the time intelligence. Let me show you real quick what I mean by this. Let's see, the dynamic measure, you see, has a group precedence of 4. Yeah, calculation group precedence is 4, while the time intelligence is 2, right? So when I apply here sales amount, for instance, you see, I'm not getting a percent. Why is this? Because we're here, yeah? So think about it. So the time intelligence say, oh, this is a year over year, so you should use a percent. But then comes the dynamic measure outside of it and say, no, but this is a sales amount, so it should be euros. And it destroys the work done by the other calculation group in this case. So let's change it. So now if I go to the dynamic measure and I put precedence 1 and it's saved back to the model. Oh, wait, sorry. I think I have another one with a calculator. Okay, maybe 0. Let's see if I have somebody with 0. No, I don't. Okay, good. You cannot have two calculation groups with the same precedence. And now, boom, it's working already. You see? So we're now the A was the right answer in case you thought of it. Okay. For most cases, this is already good enough, and it's what I apply myself. So. Now, I say you can create calculation groups with one click. Maybe you saw a video in GynaCube, which is using one of my scripts, which I was very, very proud for me. And you say, oh, but I don't know scripting, Bernat. Is no problem. I mean, you can benefit from electricity without knowing how an atomic thing works or how the electrons travel. So let's do this. I'll just open real quick another calculation, another PPIX. Hope it doesn't die, anything, and I'll open even a Chrome tab, which is gonna destroy my computer. Let's see which dies first. So what I built is here in my blog, I made an entry just to go straight into the scripts. Yeah, so it makes it also easier for me to share this. And here you see I have a script for the dynamic measure calculation group and one for the time intelligence, which I think are the two most popular calculation groups. So here we have a GitHub link. Let's open this one. And we just jump right into the code. So, and you just need to find this icon, the two square things, and you copy it. You don't have to do anything else. Yeah. Now, if I get my second one, okay, here I have my scripts demo, and here I have now I have sales amount, but this is a very basic. I don't have any calculation groups here. And I'll do that from the Tableau Editor 2 just to change a bit. Now I'll contact to the scripts demo. Okay. Here I have well, I'll show you in a second. For this one, you don't need the unsupported actions enabled. In Tableau Editor 2, you just go into advanced scripting and you paste the contents. Yeah. You can, and then this script requires you to select some measures, and then it will create the dynamic calculation group for those measures. Okay. So here I go into sales, and then I would select this, and you can execute it like this. Yeah, but since it's already like one click thing, because all the parameterization is asked during the runtime, you can go one step further and store it as a custom action, which is even nicer. So we call this dynamic measure calculation group, and it's enabled by when you have measure selected, okay? And then if I now right click here, I go to custom actions and I can run my custom action. And let's see what happens. So I get, okay, do you want to call it dynamic measure? Say, okay, that's fine with me. This is the column, which has the same name. Here, I don't know, you can call it dummy measure, something like this, whatever you like. And then there's something, this script was built by Johnny Winter, great guy. And I don't know, it was there. I didn't remove this part. I don't use it, but it's there. And now, boom, we already have a calculation group. And not only that, it's a good calculation group because you get the protection and you get the format string, everything from your measures. So make sure you have a proper format strings in your measures because they will be hard-coded into your calculation group. Yeah. And so you don't have to go back and fix them. Okay, this is one. And what about the other one? Here, for the second one, intelligence is exactly the same procedure. So we just open this one. We just grab the code. And I'll go back here. I can do exact same thing. This is called time intel, CG, whatever you like. Okay. And now for this one, you also need to specify which measures should be affected. Yeah, this should be a good practice when you're making a script to to create a calculation group. Yeah, so we'll select the same measures. Oh, and we'll select also the dummy measure, very important, because otherwise we could not play with the whole thing. Oh, but I think here it doesn't allow you calculate. Oh, sorry. So we'll do it in the, I think in Tableau 3, you don't get this problem. But then again, what happens now? Oh, wait, now I should connect to the other one and it's still not, okay, wait a minute. In order to do that, first I need to save once, because otherwise the other instance of Tabular Editor will not know I have already a calculation group and new measures. So now I jump into the 3 one and I connect here. Okay, so I already have my dynamic measure. And I think here I can select from several tables without any, yeah, here it works. Yeah. Oh no, this is the column, this is the measure. Yeah. Oh wait, but I didn't paste here. I'll paste the other script. Yeah. I could save it as a macro, and I could even put it here as a button in a custom. So it's the same thing. Yeah. I already have it, so I can right-click macros and here. So I have the time until demo, or I could click here. Yeah. I left it here. It's the same thing. And now it asks me, is this the group? Is this the column? And now this calculation group will create a calculated table where just to store the names of the affected measures. So in case you create a measure later and you want it to be affected also by the calculation group, you only add it to the table and you don't have to modify all the calculation items for both value and format string, which is quite a pain. So anyway, I'll just go ahead and say, yeah, this is fine. And this is interesting because it asks you about your model. Yeah. So what's your fact table? This is sales. This is the main date column. Your date table is, in my case, is called date. And this is the date column of my date table. And this is the year. It uses that for the dynamic level thing. And now if I go back here, you see I already have my time intelligence calculation group with very fancy calculation items. And it has something for the measures, there also for the, this is for the measures, also for the dynamic label. Well, this is a very interesting calculation group and I use it all the time in production. So very, very recommended. So we can now go back here. You see, you don't need to write any code nor even understand what is happening. You can trust me. These are very good code. You can use it. And you can get this calculation group. In any case, this is something that just modifies your model. So it's not like a code running forever in your model or anything. It's just to do what you could do by hand, but just faster. Okay. So this is the end. Oh, we're just getting started. So now I'll just show you, this is the basics, yeah? So we've learned a little bit about dynamic measures, time intelligence, but the possibilities are quite bright, I would say endless, but really, really bright. I'll just close this one so I get some RAM back for me. And we'll open yet another PBIX where I have a bunch of use cases. If you know, I have a blog and I post all the crazy ideas that I come up with. And for some reason, most of them are in calculation groups. And I explain all about them. And what I did is basically put all those use cases in one PBIX. Well, not all, but quite a few of them. And so I'll show you what is possible. We don't get into the details and how is this done, but the playing things are just the ones that you saw, the value and the format expression. There is nothing more to that. And here is just to what can be done with calculation groups. And well, you saw this one. This is convenient. What is this? This is convenient. So you can share, for example, the calculations of many measures in a very compact form. This is only possible if you use a calculation group. Also here, I like this one. So if you want to modify your model for some reason, so I would like to see what the value would be if these tables were related by another. You should create a new version of all your measures using the use relationship, but with calculation groups, you can do it to all of them just in a click. Yeah. So very nice as well. And then here, this is a bit more, maybe in each case, I don't know, but here, for example, we see we have a matrix, and you say, oh, I don't want to see this line, yeah, because there's no sales happening in this combination, yeah. So, but I have some measures that are causing this line to show. So, what I would normally do here, I have a measure, yeah, which is called with sales, which I'll show you with sales. With sales, it's just if it's empty, then no, otherwise yes. Yeah. So with sales, yes should only show me those lines that have sales, right? So if I go here and say, okay, is yes, we should just hide these lines, right? However, for some reason, it's hiding some other things that were there. Like why? Well, there's a couple of videos from SQL BI, and it goes deep into the code that is generated by the visual, and it does some optimizations that in some edge cases causes, values to disappear. Yeah. So what you can do though is what I do is I put this condition in a calculation group and say, okay, if this is not the case, then just blank out. And this works much better. So here you see if I apply it like this, I get all my values. Very nice. There's a blog about this. Okay. Then this is a bit more fancy, maybe not, I don't know, maybe it doesn't fulfill all your use cases, but it's very fun to see. Everybody has struggled with this, right? Oh, I want the measure. Oh, but these are not the same. Oh, this is terrible. And then what am I supposed to do? Yep. So here you see, I can just control the width of my column. Oh, wait, why is it not showing? No, I don't know why the values disappear. Wait. Oh, that's odd. That should not be happening. Why is this happening? 1 and 2. That's super odd. Okay, I need to type. This is working. This is not. Maybe I messed something with that. Anyway, there is a way, just messing with a format string to add like spaces in front of the value so that it matches. Yeah, I don't know what happened with these ones. Anyway, this is also maybe not real use case, but fun anyway. Here you see I have a chart, and then I say, oh, but this color is fine, but I would like it a bit more transparent. And you can control that with a calculation group as well. I want this color to be darker. You can do that as well. Lots of fun. Yeah. I haven't used that in production. I haven't found yet a use case for that, but still looking at. And here, these I used in production. This might be more interesting. This is if you're working with retail, then you have products, you have stores, you have, all these things. But then the key account managers manages certain products for certain clients or for certain regions. So it's terrible, yeah, because how are you supposed to do that? Because you cannot filter 2 dimensions simultaneously, right? Because it says, no, I cannot do that. And this is what you get. If you're just using columns from here, you get like a Cartesian product of everything. So CAM1 should only be Europe and Contoso, but here is showing for all. However, when I enable this, bam, now it's working. It's as if I was filtering. Yeah, so it puts like a tree task around your measures and suddenly everything works. And I don't know what else I have here. Oh, this I like very much as well. If you try to put a conditional formatting of gradient on a matrix, you might have realized that if you want it to work on values and totals, you have to specify a hard-coded value for max and min and neutral. And I think it's terrible. Yeah, so with quite a lot of DAX, I established like what is the maximum value, minimum value, and also establish in what range should I look for the maximum and minimum. And then you get you see this is sales amount year to date, but with some coloring. It's like, oh, and why is this color so red? And then you go here, it's like, come on, look at this. You went down by $10 and that's 41%. And maybe for North America, the worst offender is this one, is 31%, but still. And then it's good because you get the actual values, but also some context. And with the tooltip, you can explain why the coloring is what it is. And this I've used in production. I think it's a good use case. And then this is a little broken because I modified the original. But here, if you want to build tables like this, in which you arbitrarily say what are the subcategories of some over group, you can do that also with calculation groups. I've written about it. You can check on Matlock, and it's a little tricky, but can be done. If you cannot afford like InfoRiver or something like this, you can learn DAX and do it this way. And here, the final one, this is not from myself. The idea comes from Jeff Weir, a very active guy on Twitter. And he came out with a dynamic format string that formats according to the size of the number displayed. So here, for example, you see for this large number, it's a billion. But once you go down, it's million, and then it's case, it's thousand. So you don't get that from the native auto format units of Power BI. And in some use cases, it might make sense because you have very different units, values in the same column, and you want to show just a few numbers. I think this is very, very interesting. So this and much more, I explain in sessions I call like calculation groups beyond time intelligence, would be like the continuation of this one. Actually, next week, there's an Enterprise Analytics Summit, which I'll be showing some of these things. And also in the Global Power BI Summit on say first week of March, I think. I'll also be talking about such use cases. Basically, it's getting into the details of some of these use cases and some other ones as well. I don't know. I hope there are some questions. I would like to continue this session getting into the whatever wasn't clear or what you want to know.
Definitely, Bernat. Thank you very much for that. It's a very riveting introduction to calculation groups and what is possible. We do have an anonymous question coming in around creating calculation groups using scripting within Tableau Editor. Mm-hmm. So within the script that you shared with us, are there multiple developers working on that? Can we expect to see that grow to become an all-encompassing calculation group script?
Well, I like this question because I'm working on because the scripts that I've shown today are quite basic in a way that everything is contained in this script. Yeah. However, when you want to create a good code, there is very repetitive functionality. So if you want to create a calculation group and you put it a name, this name cannot collide with other table names that you have in your model. And I think in this case, it's not prepared for that. If you do that, bam, you get an error and that's the end of it. So what I'm building is a custom DLL file that will encapsulate this sort of functionality. And I'm starting working with it, but I don't really have much time for it. But that is my long-term project now. So that you say, I want to create a calculation group. This is the, and then you have a default name, but then it asks the user, are you okay with the default name? Do you want to change it? And then it checks if there's another table. If there's, shows a pop-up, try again. This is not good for this reason, and and then it continues. And also, I like putting annotations in the model. So if I have another script which happens, this is I have another one that creates like some dynamic labels using the time intelligence calculation group, so that at the end of the line you get the actual label, a dynamic one. So not Y, but 2009 versus 2008 kind of thing. Yeah. And to do that, of course, you need to calculate to say, okay, where is your time intelligence calculation group? And through the annotations, you can go and grab that one. But then when you search for something, you have quite a few. Maybe you find it, maybe you don't. Maybe you find two of them. Then you have to ask which one should be used. So all this functionality I want to move into a custom DLL. So you can do programming well once and then reuse, which is great. But it's difficult because debugging is not so easy. And again, well, I'm not really good at C#. I did something like that in VBA in Excel. And I would blast into just new programs, just using my functions. I have a way of loading everything, and then it's like, wow, I would do it very, very quickly. And I'm trying to get somewhere close to what I had in Excel, but for Power BI in this case.
Excellent. So we're gonna wait excitedly for that to appear, hopefully in the future then.
Yeah, actually this script that mine for the time intelligence is published at the repository from Power BI tips, which is the largest one. And I thought, okay, I'll put it there. And already I got like some small change from some guys, like because it was a miss there, and it's like somebody fixed it for me. I was like, oh, I liked it. I like it.
Excellent. And just before we go into our next question there, Bernat, just for all of our participants, we've just put in the Q&A a feedback form for today's session. So if you could just take 10 seconds out to fill that out for us, that would be great. Okay, so with that being said, Bernat, our next question is, again, an anonymous question, and they ask, is there any performance hit with many calculation groups?
I mean, I would say about the same, and if you have like very complicated measures, right? I mean, imagine if you have a measure that reads from a measure that reads from a measure, I mean, and so on, that would be pretty much the same as you having calculation groups. That said, if performance is an issue, Kane Snyder, which is my sort of like my mentor, the guy that showed me how calculation groups work in Power BI in a session in Heaven BI with Raid Heavens. This guy made a real cool post not long ago saying that it's more performant if you put everything in a single calculation item and then a disconnected table. And then if the selected value of that is this, then do that. If that is the other one, then do that. And the reason being that you can like reuse some calculations done that you might need in more than one. And I don't know, I found it very interesting. I'm not using it because I don't really like having all the calculation items in one place. I don't know, this performance is always the same thing. Like try it, and if it's too slow, then think of alternatives or think of better ways of improving it.
Excellent, thank you. And the next question that's come in has asked, is there a limit in the number of calculation groups that can be created within a model?
Well, I haven't reached it yet, and I have quite a few. And I mean, for the gallery one, I don't know how many I have there. Maybe it's like 10 or 12. So I wouldn't be too worried. Maybe it's more like what you should do or not what you can do, because I mean, it can be very important though is start little by little, go checking your work, because that happened to me in the beginning. It's like, yeah, and then I'll do another one that is this, and then you put them all together and it doesn't produce the result. Calculation groups are very hard to debug, yeah, because you don't really get the final DAX expression exploded to see all the details. You just see that that calculation item is applied, but not exactly how it's applied. So go step by step and don't rush it, and you'll be fine.
And your answer there, Bernat, has led me on to a general question. So you mentioned there in terms of debugging calculation groups. Now, Tabular Editor 3 has the DAX debugger functionality. So my question is that now possible using the DAX debugger?
Good thing. I have to be honest, I haven't really dived into that yet. I'm afraid, though, that you might get to the point in which it says, okay, and then the calculation item is applied. But you don't really have, I mean, what you really want to see is what's the DAX. I mean, all the DAX, you know, without any calculation item, no? Like exploded the calculation items, like, and because this becomes first and then the other one, and then this is the final one. I don't think you can get to that point. So I would be very surprised if you could. And so in that sense, it's difficult to understand really how the precedent works sometimes. And because, of course, I said you can put like a calculation group inside the measure. What happens if I have another calculation group coming from outside, which has like smaller precedents, and it's like, that is, I don't know, really. So many of these possibilities, I really don't know what happens inside. So I try to avoid these situations and go with the paths that I know.
No problem at all. And we have another question as well that's come in. So you mentioned Tabular Editor 2 and Tabular Editor 3. Yes. Now, for some of our users, they don't have access to be able to install external tools on their systems. Mm-hmm. Can you recommend any workarounds or ways that they can convince their businesses to let them utilize the powers of Tabular Editor and calculation groups?
I think SQL BI has some good articles on that. I would say really it's not like an obscure way of modifying the model, because these tools are using like official Microsoft libraries to do that. So it's like even Microsoft uses them. Yeah. So this is the general approach to do that. Large organizations are using them, so it's not like the first one to use that. And also important is that Tabular Editor just modifies the model for you, but it's not like something that sticks with it. I mean, it's not like you have some dependency on Tabular Editor. I mean, once you finished your modifications, your model is as good as any. Yeah, so it's just faster, you know, because in Power BI Desktop, you create a measure, then it synchronizes with the database, and I don't know, and it takes like 5 seconds maybe, and it's terrible to develop seriously. And then Tabular Editor, you create everything you need, and then like, yeah, now it's the time to save. It's much faster. Yeah. Also, I mean, this is going to the dark side. You have also the portable options. So you download the portable version, it works just fine. You just don't get the icon on the external tools place, but other than that, it's exactly the same thing. You just open as an app, connect to and then you close it. Didn't happen. I didn't say
Excellent. Thanks, Ben. We definitely heard it, but no, thank you. And we're just getting some more general comments coming back in to say thank you for the great session as well. So we really appreciate it. On that note, I do have another question in terms of, for anybody who hasn't used calculation groups before, what's your recommendation for them to A, get involved, and B, obviously get up to speed?
Well, it's important to, I mean, yeah, this being here is already a great start, I would say, because now you see it's not that difficult. So you just go and create and see what happens. I would start maybe these 2 calculation groups are the most that are most like ready to use, I would say. So don't go into weird things. Start with the beginning, step by step. You can also watch some more calculation group videos from SQL BI or Ken Snyder, which are great. And I'm sure you'll find ways to reduce the number of measures that you need to achieve great stuff. Also, all these things about, you know, modifying format strings with DAX is the only way you can do that. So if you have a chart and you want to show only the data label for the highest value or lowest value, how do you do that? You have to do that with a calculation group. I'll be talking about that on Tuesday on the on the analytics summit.
Excellent. We look forward to it as well. And Bernat, that's all of the questions that we've had come through so far in today's session. So once again, we'd really like to thank you for imparting your knowledge and spending your time with the community.
Yeah, it was a blast. I love it. Yep.
Oh. Excellent. Thank you. And thank you to everybody that's joined us as well in today's session. Once again, you've been here with the Microsoft Power BI UK user group in association with Onyx Data, and we'll be back again next week for another fantastic opportunity to come together and learn together as a community. So once again, thank you. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you've been here with us. Look forward to seeing you soon, and stay safe.